Shootout ended in tragedy this week when alleged kidnapping victim, 15-year-old Savannah Graziano, was shot and killed as she ran toward the officers. So here's what we know. Officials in California issued an Amber Alert for Savannah as a missing person this Monday after her father, Anthony Graziano, allegedly murdered her mother, Savannah's mother, and then fled with the teen in his car. According to the police, Anthony, who was also killed in the shootout, began firing at deputies during a high-speed car chase. Amidst a barrage of gunfire, the vehicle in question stopped, and then Savannah emerged from the passenger side wearing a helmet and tactical gear, allegedly. She was shot and killed while running toward the police. Now, deputies say they failed to identify the 5'2" figure as Savannah until they began to provide medical assistance to her. Officials have yet to confirm who actually shot the girl. On Wednesday, police shockingly claimed that Savannah participated in the gunfight and had actually shot at the police. However, a preliminary report produced by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office finds only one gun was retrieved at the scene, a rifle found inside the car where Anthony was shot and killed. Joining us now to weigh in is New York Public Defender for Legal Aid and political commentator Alayemi Alurin. So great to see you this morning, Alayemi.
Thank you for having me, y'all.
So this is something that I know you have complained about when we've had discussions about police incidents. You've pointed out cases where the police have claimed that they shot in self-defense or they were shot at first, so that's how they had to respond. But as you point out, that's often not the case, or it turns out later that there was no weapon, or there was not a weapon in the possession of the person who it's purported to have fired it, and that seems to be the case here.
Exactly. That's the same thing here. You know, it's unfortunate that the police engage in this kind of negligence routinely, and I wish I could say I was shocked, but I'm not. The police admits to shooting and killing over 1,045 people each year. So does it shock me that the police would shoot and kill this girl? No, but it's so unfortunate because when you talk to people about the case of police brutality and what's happening with police in this country, the response is always, well, what do we do without police? What happens in these kind of incidents? And it's like, well, look at what happens. This is what the police interference is, right? You have a girl that's been kidnapped by her father, and instead of safely getting this girl back to the family, what they do is they don't just shoot and kill the father. That's one thing, neither here nor there, but they know that little girl was unarmed. You know exactly who you're looking for. You notice this is a 15-year-old girl. You know it, and yet they shoot her to death, and they don't just, it's not even an apology. It's not even remorseful for the actions. The immediate response is what you see them do in every case of police brutality is vilify the victim. Immediately it's, oh, she was participating in the shootout. Oh, we didn't know if she was unarmed. We didn't know if she was armed. You did know. Your entire task was to go and rescue this little girl, and instead, her assuming, because she's taught, like everybody else in the society, to believe the police are there to help her, she runs towards the police and they shoot her to death. And their response is vilify the child that was supposedly the victim that they were going after. It's unacceptable, but it's not uncommon, and that's the greater problem.
Right, because this was a very dangerous situation. I mean, the kidnapper, the alleged kidnapper, the father, did shoot at them. It was a high-speed car chase, so it was a dangerous situation. A situation that I think probably most people think, yeah, this is what the police are there for. This is what they're supposed to do. And neutralizing the father was probably well within a justified situation. But they're there. They're supposed to. The very point is to rescue that girl, and for them to have it is de facto negligent. Like it just is negligent because they were supposed to rescue her.
Right, and we just keep allowing these kinds of things to happen. If we remember, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago with the UPS driver where the jewels were stolen and the police went in a shootout for the jewels, shot up the entire UPS truck and killed the UPS driver who was the victim that they were supposedly supposed to be rescuing. They do this. Why do we need this response? If we say violence doesn't help things, we wouldn't allow civilians to go and approach our problems. Like, we wouldn't have allowed them to go and follow the father and engage in the shootout, do all of this, and then kill the victim because they were trying to do this and they got into it in a shootout. We wouldn't, but yet with the police we allow this. We have situations that are bad and we allow the police to come in and make it worse, and then we just say what now? Because this is unacceptable and it's not routine, and we don't even, it's not new. We've seen these kinds of things happen before, and there's no real response to prevent it from happening. There's no real condemnation of the police departments. Instead, we see what we always get, and the beginnings of a massive cover-up, excuses, explanations for why they did something that was just quite frankly unacceptable, and there's no larger discussion as to how they end up here. Why is the police response to be so trigger happy? If you're supposed to be trying to rescue this girl, why is the main focus when you see the child emerge from the car to shoot her to death? Why?
Right. because I'm sure many people would say to themselves, okay, if I find out that, a girl, my neighbor or something, her mother's been killed, she's missing, or I know that she's missing, she's been kidnapped, that generates the Amber Alert, and people are just doing what they think is the right thing to do. You're supposed to call the police in a situation like this, and to have that, result in
a massacre of a family.
Right, is just...
The whole family's dead.
Yeah,
that's the unfortunate part is we need to remember, right? If we look at the police is supposed to stop crime, prevent crime, maybe harm, reduce it, right? In this scenario, a woman is killed by her husband, her child is kidnapped, and what do the police come in and do? Make sure that those two people are dead too. The child is dead. Like, how did they didn't better it, they didn't reduce it, they in fact just made a bad situation worse, and there's no apology, there's no explanation, there's no declaration to do better, there's no inspection or reflection on what they did or what could have been done differently. No, it's just immediately, let's engage in how we blame the victim for her own murder.
Yeah. What happens now? Walk us through, because you're more of an expert on how these things go. What does an investigation look like at this point? And do you expect, the police department to just kind of continue to find excuses like the one they made? That, well, she was armed, so we had no choice.
They're gonna say they're conducting an investigation, and then after a while, we're not gonna hear about it so much. And the next thing we're gonna hear is that the prosecutors declined to bring charges because they're going to blame it on the father and say the police in this incident, they didn't really know. They're going to come up with that, and they're just going to quietly brush it under the rug, just like they did with the UPS driver and every other case that we ever hear about like this, unfortunately.
If they don't discipline police officers who make egregiously wrong calls that result in innocent lives being taken, even in situations that I think the vast majority of people would say that, this situation is one that does call ideally for the police. So if they don't take responsibility when they get it wrong in situations like this, isn't it the police themselves who are kind of, playing into the idea, well, what good are the police? Or making people more reluctant to call them in situations where they really are necessary.
They are making the case. What we constantly say to people is police do not stop or prevent crime. Whenever we talk about, abolishing the criminal system or why we need to defund the police or any of these things, the answer is the police do not do what we think they do. They simply don't, and they do it ineffectively. Police solve maybe less than 2% of crime in America. They certainly don't stop it. They don't prevent it. They respond. They respond to crime. They respond to situations, and they often respond worse. They often exacerbate and worsen situations that are already underway. And the problem with stuff like this is whenever you want to have these conversations and people want a bad apple it, they're just occasional bad officers. If they were, let's say that's the case, and it's not, the entire problem is not with policing. We just have a lot of bad actors that are engaged in constant police brutality to do incidents like this. What does it say if the police departments themselves cover for those people? If they say, no, they're not bad apples, this is okay, this is acceptable, which is what they continue to tell us. So if they say that this is not a problem, this is not, an outlier, this is not a reflection of individual bad cops, but in fact, this behavior is acceptable, and we, the victims or the people that are being killed, are the ones that are wrong. What does this say about our policing system and what will continue to happen?
Well, Olayemi, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Robbie.
Always a pleasure. Tomorrow on Rising, we'll dig into the latest data on how Hispanic voters are leaning ahead of the midterms. And please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I'll see you all back here tomorrow. Uvalde has suspended its entire school district police department after months of nationwide backlash. This comes just as families of victims from the massacre conducted an 11-day sit-in in front of the school district police station. Well, Kanye West's Twitter and Instagram accounts have been restricted after the superstar rapper posted comments that some described as anti-Semitic. Twitter told CBS News that the rapper was locked out of his account due to a violation of Twitter's policies. Twitter did not specify what specific policies had been broken, but the account restriction came after West posted a tweet in which he threatened to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people on Saturday. In the tweet, which has been subsequently removed, West also said, "The funny thing is I can't actually be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jewish also."
It's true.
On Instagram, West shared a since-deleted post that included a screenshot of a text conversation with rapper Sean Diddy Combs, in which West suggested Combs was being controlled by Jews. West wrote, I'm going to use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me.
Yeah, so the specific tweet was, you guys have, I'm going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone whoever opposes your agenda. And so Kanye West is kind of back in the news, or he's always in the news, obviously, back in political news because he did a big interview with Tucker Carlson, of all people. And then there was like the House.
I'm just going to mention that what Kanye West, and I'm not a fan of Kanye West in any way because I think he's a cabal, Freemasony, Illuminati-ish type entity. But what he's saying is true. Sometimes he'll give you little bits and pieces of truth here and there so that everybody can deny it. More so than he's telling you. The Jewish people, before they were even called Jewish, I believe, they I don't really like talking about it too much, really, but it's something that's got to be said. The ancient Egyptians, there was a pre-ancient Egyptians that I'll let you know that the ancient Egyptians came upon the buildings that were left behind after what I'm going to be explaining to you as a reset. We have these resets throughout our history that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to admit them. They're human resets. They're not space aliens. They're not God. It's not anything that they tell you that it is. These are human resets. And they like to do these resets using testicles and penises. Right now, we're about to go through a reset. Maybe, I'm hoping, maybe it'll just be a partial reset, but any kind of a reset is not going to be good for any of the populations. It's a reset. It's just what it says. It's a start over. So they're going to get rid of us in every which way. It's not going to just be killing us with poisons and locking us down and driving everyone insane with their tyrannic governments. And it's not going to just be those things. It's also going to be we're going to get hit by a bunch of big penises that are going to devastate everything. And at that same time, they'll be dividing Adam. So when we come back up, there'll be, four-legged frogs with a, fifth limb maybe or something like that comes out of their belly. There'll be different insects. The bumblebee will be gone, but there'll be other flying insects that take over that bumblebee's job, things of that nature, because there is no such thing as nature anymore. Humans control it all. And one of the things I want to mention before I continue playing this video here is that what I'm showing you here now is the clouds. You're looking in the clouds, and if you have eyes that are open, you'll see that it's image within image within image, from the veil to the ground. It is this way. It's nothing that we were told or explained to. And several of the hoaxes that you'll be tempted to buy into as I'm showing you these videos, you'll think, okay, there's nobody that doesn't know anything. He's a fucking idiot. So therefore, one of these other things must be true. And you'll go back to your God, or you'll go back to space aliens, or you're going to go back to other human influences, such as it's a matrix. We're living in a matrix. Or we live in a hologram is another big one. We're living in a hologram, they'll say. And I'm telling you, it's not any of those things. It's not what you know of as God. It's not what you know of as space aliens, because outer space does not exist as you think it does. We've all been overeducated, programmed to the fullest. And people like yourselves who are more so educated, highly intelligent, you need to check yourself. probably a little bit more than the average zombie slave, because the average zombie slave has ignorance, and ignorance is bliss. But the zombie slaves that hold what we call intelligence have a hard time stepping back and seeing their intelligence for what it actually is, which is programming. Doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's real, doesn't even mean it doesn't mean it's good. It's definitely not any of those things. But what you think it means is not what it means. Intelligence is not what you think it means, and we think of intelligence as something good. We think that we know something, and in reality, what we know are a bunch of lies. And then there are little drabs and dribbles of truth that are passed down in between all the lies. But you gotta have your type of personalities, Brianna and Olimey. You gotta have your personalities in order to do that for sure, because you're able to read between the lines of a lot of bullshit. I noticed when I'm watching your guys' videos, it just seems like you're not taking it far enough. You got to take it to the next step. I don't know. Not everybody will be ready for that either. So I'm gonna give it a shot. So I'm gonna press play again on both of these.
I don't know if we have that tweet. The House Judiciary, the GOP House Judiciary Twitter account tweeted like Elon, Kanye, Trump, like those are our people, sort of. So Kanye being kind of claimed as a conservative celebrity right now, and in part because of, and then what he said about abortion, which I think we have. Let's play that.
The lanyard's still on from it, and there's a photograph on it. What is that?
It's a photograph of a baby's ultrasound.
Why is that? And that you designed that?
Yes.
Why? What does that mean?
It just represents life. I'm pro-life.
Boy, so you wear it on a badge. What kind of response do you get? And good, amen. I agree.
I don't care about people's responses. I care about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted than born in New York City at this point. That 50% of black death in America.
Okay, so to Brianna and so good at Olimey, he's right about that, and you guys won't agree with that when I'm listening to you guys talk about abortions and stuff like that. You're looking at it as human rights. I'm just started watching your videos, so I'm hoping to come across some of those statistics that are make it all very obvious that we've been lied to about all that. But it is a big way of taking out the black population, was the abortions. And yeah, it's not a good idea. There are a lot of other better ways to make things better for all humans, but black humans in particular. There are much better ways than taking out their babies. I'm not saying there's not certain circumstances, and I'm not claiming that women should not have the right to their own bodies or any of that stuff, because I think all that should. I think that when you realize that everything's been programmed and that we're all programmed, then you have to sit back and do kind of what I was just saying earlier, is that use your own instincts, use the true creator's energy in order to see things and make these decisions of what side you're going to fall on. And it can't be sides anymore. It has to be everyone. We've run out of time. They're going to hit the reset button on us, and we're going to be out of time. So it's something that has to happen 50 years ago. It's not something that can happen 50 years from now. It's got to happen. So I hope that I'm able to awaken you even more than you both already are. But what Kanye West is about to have, or he wants to be called Yay Yay now, or whatever the fuck he's doing now. But he is right about a lot of things. He's right about the black and Jewish connection that everybody likes to ignore. That was the fault of certain white humans that took away black identity, and they took it away way bigger than you or Candace Owens would ever fucking dream of. or Kanye West. You don't even you're not even on the tip of the iceberg, because I'll get into it later. But as far as the abortion thing goes, he's right about that as well. He's not even putting it out there. He should be giving the numbers. He should be, and I'll play the video and see if he does, but I don't think so. But if you put out the numbers and you see what the comparison is, black population compared to white population already, just look at those two numbers. Then you look at the abortion rate, right? Then you look at the number that are murdered and gunned down in the streets. Babies, 3 years old, 6 years old, crossfire, misfires, whatever the fuck's going on in all these places. And I agree with you that it's just as bad in conservative states and all that stuff, as far as bad stuff like that happening, or white people doing the same shit and everything like that. But the white is not the minority, even though we're claiming that we're getting close to being the minority. That's all bullshit. We're still gonna probably be around, I'd say, 60 to 70%. And then if you include Hispanics who want to fall on the side of white, which they probably should, Asians to the yellows to the browns, and I base a lot of things on color, not necessarily nationality, but color. And I think you will too, and then you'll realize how important it is to do so. If you go look at the True Creator's work, I'll show you.
So I really don't care about people's responses. I perform for an audience of one, and that's God.
All right, so to return to the actual hook of this, the suspension from Twitter, I guess that tweet violates a policy.
Yes.
I mean, I agree that it is vague, at least maybe more than vaguely
It's
anti-Semitic.
anti-Semitic.
It speaks to some anti-Semitic tropes. I don't know that it is more malicious or hateful than tons of other stuff you can encounter on the platform all the time.
I want us to stop being in a world where we acknowledge that something is hate speech or something is hateful. The community has expressed that it is hateful, and then we try.
But maybe it's not hateful. Maybe it's not hate speech. Maybe what he's saying, or he's almost ready to say, he doesn't actually say it, but maybe what he's thinking in the back of his mind, but he can't prove it, is the idea that blacks and Jews come from the same blood. And there are some people out there, because this has been told to me one time briefly, someone just in my life passing by, and they explained that part of it to me. And then for me, using the True Creator's energy, I was going back because I wanted to know about those 350-ton stones, those 50-ton to 350-ton stones. I had a lot of curiosity about that. So one time when I was practicing going back, it's not really going back because the True Creator's time is all one, so you have to remember that. But when I went into the energy and I used it, the time frame that I wanted to be at was those times of who was building those 350-ton stones, and that was a black king and queen. And the brief part of the story that I seem to understand is that the black queen was murdered about 150 years into her life. They used to live to 300 years at that time. Okay, then you flash forward now, what I have, so then I'm back. I'm back. That's all I got of the story. But when I am back, then it makes me realize that what we call the ancient Egyptians were just that. They were the ancient Egyptians. They were not the pre-ancient Egyptians that actually built those buildings. And the evidence that they knew about the True Creator and the True Creator's builders is in what they were building. So the pre-ancient Egyptians is who I'm talking about. The ones who really built those structures. The ones that were able to still move 5-ton stones and bring them to high plate. Now 5 tons, I mean, that they were so small, those blocks are small, that made the pyramids. And I think there's a couple 5 or 6 ton stones that built the cat, the Sphinx, or whatever they want to call it. But they were not the ones the ancient Egyptians were not the ones that built those. They just came upon them and reused them. So they, at that time, were probably not even able to move the 5 or 6 ton stones. They were only able to move hundreds of pound stones or thousands of pound stones, not, you know, tons. So looking at the evidence that I can see with my own eyes, go touch, feel, that's in this realm, and putting that together with the rest of the story, what my friend Tony had told me about, you know, what he told me was that, they don't even get it, meaning the Jews don't even get it, that his people come from my people and my people come from his people. That's the way he worded it. So, so when I went back and used the True Creator's energy and went back to that time period of the 350-ton stones, that's what I seen. I seen the black couple, king and queen, and then I seen her death, and I seen, and which was a murder by a group of people that tricked the king. The king did not know it was a murder, and poison of some kind or something like that. But anyway, she was murdered, and then came a Jewish queen, that a white Jewish queen that came in and married the king. So that's when everything changed, and that's also was in between another reset. There was some kind of reset. How do I know that? How can I say that? We can all say that because if you look at what was being built, you can see that we were moving, cutting, precision cuts, buffing 350-ton stones, moving them for hundreds of miles, putting them not hundreds of miles down, but miles down, building them miles up, miles back high, all that kind of thing. It was a lot. That's why they'll tell you gods, they'll tell you space aliens. We've had the geocentric model since then. Over the last couple thousand years, we went through the geocentric model. Now they got us living by the heliocentric model. Well, these were all lies. These things were all lies, everything that revolves around them. They brought us to zero and infinity, which are lies. The Metellus were lied to about the Metellus by the tens of thousands of lies, because there are millions and millions of these different metalls that when all combined, absorption and secretion carbons, that when combined with other absorption and secretion carbons, become the building blocks that the true creators builders use to build everything in this realm, including rocks, stones, volcanoes, gas, everything. They're used to build everything in here. And then they push off, and one of the first biospecies that they build is something called a biometallus, is what I call them, electrometallus and biometallus. And the electrometallus even still have no legs, no eyes, no nothing. They're still just absorption and secretion biospecies. And then you move on to the biometallus, where they finally start having eyes and legs and things like that. And sometimes not even legs, but at least having what we would know as and recognize as biospecies. And then the medical industry and science does not even recognize tens of thousands of them, so they say, but really it's millions upon millions of them, because there are millions of each strain and there are millions of each type of metal. So all these things that we're not told, you will see them for yourself. You don't have to take anyone's word on it, including mine. That's the great thing about what I'm bringing you and showing you, is that the evidence for it is all around us. And so far, everyone just refuses to look. It's a big mistake, because we're running out of time. People have to start going and looking. I don't know why that keeps happening.
And water it down, or compare it to other hateful things, or how this hateful thing was handled versus this is hateful. This is the thing. It's not, people are calling it anti-Semitic. Specifically, Jewish people themselves are calling it anti-Semitic because it is. All right. Do you know who's the premier authority on anti-Semitism? The Jewish people. I'm going to let them as a community. And also, it's a pretty vile, very clearly that, filled with It's not only anti-Semitic, but it's absolutely stupid. And in response to Kanye saying, he doesn't care about what people have to say about it, he cares a lot. All of this is for attention. He wants us to be speaking about it. Kanye does this on a regular basis. Listen, is Kanye incredibly talented? Yes, he is. Has Kanye made amazing music and albums? Yes, he has. Is Kanye mentally unwell? Yes. Is Kanye battling with mental health issues? Absolutely. Do I believe that Kanye is aware of what he's doing? Absolutely. I think Kanye has made a decision. Listen, Kanye is doing a two-step called Shook and Jive. That's what he's doing. He's getting himself into these rooms filled with white nationalists, and he's embracing a white nationalist ideology, and anti-Semitism is in keeping with that, and that is what he consistently does. And I will say this: Kanye does a thing. It's one thing.
But why is it anti-Semitic? I don't understand that really. I think you guys are blowing this up. I think if you calm down and you back off a little bit, you'll see. Okay, for example, okay, so he's saying that blacks and Jews are the same, right? That's what he's saying. Blacks and Jews are the same, right? And that's the same thing my friend Tony told me 20 years ago or whatever it was when he told me about it. That his people and my people, his people come from my people and my people come from his people. That's what he said. So isn't that a getting together thing? And what's happened is the accusation that he's making, that the part that you don't like is maybe that Jewish people won't allow blacks into their community, even though Kanye and my friend Tony know that they're connected in a special way, that they're bonded, they're one and the same, even though their benefits to their different colors have different benefits to the system. Kanye's and my friend Tony are claiming that blacks and white Jews are the same. So why is that a bad thing? And how is that anti-Semitic? The only way that it becomes anti-Semitic is because everybody's blowing it up to be. But if, let's say, the people that he was calling out, right, these Hollywood, Jewish Hollywood writers and producers, right, because that's who he's pissed off at. And there's other titles as well, but they're of Jewish descent, and they're making a lot of money off the backs of rappers and singers and materialists, capitalism, right? So they're making money off the backs of them, and Kanye's pointing this out. So what if they instead came around to what Kanye was saying and what my friend Tony was saying, and they said, you know what, brother? You're right. You're right. I think we are connected. I feel like we have a connection too. I think we were lied to about our history, and that I feel very connected with all my black brothers and sisters, and a special connection, one that someone from Russia or someone from Germany or someone from Poland that maybe moved to the Americas, just like our generations did, even though you got to think about it, you guys came to the Americas, black people that is, under way different circumstances than Jewish people did, right? And even Jewish people were running away from this so-called Holocaust, which that's a whole nother story we can get into. And not saying that people didn't die during the Holocaust, because it was a horrible, terrible thing that happened. I mean, everybody can admit that, and you have to start off every sentence saying that. But everything else surrounding what happened ended up being a lie. Who Hitler was, who he was really working with and for, and all this kind of stuff, and the regime changes, and all the political shit that went on around it, the religious nonsense. Hitler was always looking for the Temple of Doom, and he was always looking for Jesus's robes, and all these kind of religious bullshit that all came into play during all that episode. It was all drama, and it was over dramatized. And when you look back at it, when see the true creator and the true creator's work, and you understand where the false creator/creator comes into all this, you're going to look back at all that shit and say, oh my God, because you're going to understand that the 1%, the 10,000 that live on this earth and have always been here, because they go down in their bunkers every time they do a reset, and then they come back out and they start over again and go on with their new lies and the newest set of lies. Now, obviously, when we come back after this one, is going to be space aliens are God. We're going to all be connected to the AI, cameras everywhere. It's the amount of slavery that we're about to go into, the prison systems in New York that you're complaining about. That's what we got going on in the streets. But people think because they can go to the dollar store and buy a bunch of things that they don't need, or people who are more wealthy can go buy a bunch of a yacht and an airplane or whatever, depending on how rich they are, fancy cars and stuff. They think that those things are going to bring them joy and happiness too, is what, which they do. Which they do. Don't get me wrong, just like the dollar store does for other people. But it's false. It's a false reality. We don't need it to be happy, and the only reason these things make us happy is because we were programmed to want them. We were programmed to enjoy them. Otherwise, if we knew the real story of everything, if we knew the real system, nobody would be satisfied with all the garbage that we collect. I'm going to say while I'm making these videos that for some reason, maybe because of yesterday's videos that I posted, but I'm just happen to notice the agents keep driving by the house while I'm making this video. I already drove by 3 times, so I'm gonna go out and take a look at them and while I get this going. He's circling the block, so he just keeps going around in circles.
To go be in that space and say, you could believe it a lot more. It could be a lot more genuine. If he didn't jump out of that space, he will choose a time during the year when he usually, I'm sure that something's coming. Something is coming. If an album's not coming, the release of some product is coming, something is happening. He does this almost, I want to say every year, but at least every other year now, he has a moment where he decides, what are all the super
No, the reason why that happened is because they had to prove that they would shut him down. No more, he was going to be ousted from the business. He was going to, the banks were not going to hold his money anymore. Realtors were not going to be calling him and giving him stock advice anymore. That kind of thing. That's what that was all about. It's all a game to these people. They're all, these are Freemasony, Illuminati-ish. I don't know, because racial issues come into all that too. So he might be part of the cabal, with Jay-Z and these guys, and possibly Candace Owens. And I'm hoping that you guys are just products of your environment, and some of the things that you're saying that are that you're really close to, knowing the truth about, but you just keep missing it. I'm hoping that's accidental and coincidental and not really a big deal.
right-wing talking points. How can I ingratiate myself with those people and get myself in that room and do what I can to be legitimized to them? And then the moment, things start going south in his life, or he needs the black community again, all of a sudden he remembers racism. He's backpedaled. He has a whole new position, because the minute he wants to be mad at Kim Kardashian in a week or two, he's a black man. The way they come after this is gonna be a whole different song and dance. Kanye knows what he's doing. He is fully aware, and we need to stop giving him as much grace as we do.
Okay, I know that he's being a white nationalist in particular.
Yeah, no, he is.
I mean, in those remarks, he talked about without
where do you think that talking
abortion
point
debate, he got into a whole.
And where do you think that talking point came from? This whole idea: you take a party and a community of people that largely are not interested in what the problems and plights of the black community, certainly not helping them or addressing them. And I know this because the black community.
You should be calling out Tucker Carlson too for his fucking gay ass video that he does with him too. Oh, and God bless you too, and amen, and all your bullshit stories. Fucking Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson might also be a product of his environment. He may not be a purposeful liar, but I know that he's the one. As soon as I made the Candace Owens series, Tucker Carlson started posting a lot of outer space nonsense, and so did Jesse Waters and a bunch of those Freemasony guys all started doing that. And I'll point out that when you want to think about the programming, I'm going to just say that at some point when I'm making these videos, I'm just going to go down the line here. with Tucker Carlson. When I was calling out Candace Owens, those guys were doing all their outer space nonsense right away, right away. Within 3 days of the start of that series, I started noticing it. Jesse Waters talked about a book that he wrote years ago that he writes about a story from 20 something years ago when he seen a spaceship or some nonsense. And, you know, people believe in a lot of fucked up shit. People even believe in what we call nature. We were programmed to believe in nature when nature is not natural at all. Humans control what we call nature. All weather is controlled by humans, and they don't want to admit it. It's right in front of our faces. We could see it for ourselves, but we won't go look. We'll make up bullshit stories that go along with our movies and our books and our televisions and all the bullshit that we were programmed to believe in. So maybe Tucker Carlson might be a product of his environment also. He may just be a product of his environment. And I have to not be mad at anybody that is. But keeping that in mind as I finish off this video is that I play a game every once in a while when I notice it, and it's amazing how many times you will hear something related to space aliens, outer space, NASA, any of the planets, stars, star functions, all these things, which are all lies. And the geocentric model, they're all lies, and they're lies in the heliocentric model. So all the times you're gonna hear anything to do with anything like that, whether they're talking about the moon rise, if you turn on the computer and you see what the moon's shadows are doing, they're gonna call it the moon cycles and all this kind of stuff. It's all been lies. I'm gonna be able to show you that the false creator built that moon purposely for us to keep track of what his version of time is. There's a clock there in that moon, and we don't go by it. We haven't gone by it since the Aztecs, I believe, maybe even earlier, maybe even one generation earlier than the Aztecs, before other resets. These were times before other resets. We were going by the moon clock, the false creator slash creator, the creator of the bio realm. We were going by his clock, and we don't do that anymore. Instead, we say that people are lazy and they don't want to work and all this kind of shit, you know. Now, being sold into slavery by our ancient ancestors is not a fucking good idea, and we should not keep doing it again, and we're ready to sell our children out into the same system. It's all a bad idea. Yeah, so my time is almost up. So what I want to say is that you can do this yourselves if you're at home. To my one or two people that watch my videos, pay attention throughout your days and see how many times, whether you're watching the news or you're crossing channels and a movie comes on or there's a commercial, I guarantee you it's going to be hundreds of times per day. You're going to hear the radio. You're listening to the radio, and all of a sudden, listen to the conversation. So, even if the subject has nothing to do with it, the moon gets mentioned, Mars gets mentioned, Tesla's having a space launch gets mentioned, NASA's moon landing failed, whatever the story is, or someone laughing about it, like Tucker Carlson was doing. Making fun of flat earthers, let's say that someone brings up flat earthers. That's the same thing. It's just mentioning the system, right? Think about how many times you're going to see that spinning wet rocket ball floating around behind a newscaster's head. Bzzz, the weather. Every time the Weather Channel comes on and they're telling you that you're getting rain, snow, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, all these things that you call natural and nature. Think about these things. So every time one of those things is mentioned, there's hundreds of times per day. So that means that there are hundreds of times a day that just keywords are being programmed into our minds so that we think they're real, right? So on one hand, they can tell you that, yeah, CIA and secret agencies throughout the West have warned Turkey. They sent them warnings because it's coming over their radar that Turkey's going to, and Syria might experience some terrorist attacks, right? Then within the next 2 weeks, you got the 7.8, 7.6, 6.7 a week later, tremors, destitution throughout Syria and Turkey. What an amazing coincidence, huh? What an amazing, but then we say it's nature. There's no one to blame. And then all the conspiracy weirdos like Clayton Morris and a lot of these other guys, they're just putting it out there to tell people what people should already know. The 7.8 billion zombies don't need to rely on all these people. We didn't need to rely on this guy Hirsch to come out and say that Biden, called the shot on blowing up the pipeline. And it's a fucking no-brainer. Biden told us himself before he did it. He had other agencies come out and say that he was going to do it before he did it. But now we're all so shocked. Oh my God, Hirsch said it was true, so now it's true. Come on, man. 7.8 billion fucking zombie slaves, man. We all go along with this shit.